Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown featuring two mighty warriors. On the left hand side we have Consul of Rome representing the legendary clan DBD up against Not a Streamer under the forces of the Beastmen. I wonder if Not a Streamer is actually a streamer in a bit of a disguise there. We'll have to wait and see. But let's hop in here and have a quick little look at the builds. In fact, I think we're going to have to pause this game, so it looks like it's going to get underway rather quickly. So for the force of the Empire, there's a pretty sturdy front line. We have spearmen on the flanks protecting against, enemy flank maneuvers, cavalry, and so forth. But in the main battle line, we have flagellants. These guys, of course, are the devoted of Sigma, crazed lunatics who do worship a man god. They're unbreakable and should be able to do a decent amount of damage. Interested to see how they perform up against Gors and Ungors. Leading the frontal force, we do have a warrior priest, of course, bringing all his buffs, the usual stuff. The Shield of Faith, Soulfire and Hammer of Sigma, but we also have the Banner of Eternal Flame, giving fire damage to nearby troops, which can be particularly useful up against Beastmen, as they can help counter Morga, as well as the Butchers of Calvingard, and so on. We have a Celestial Wizard coming in with, looks like a Wind of Death, not Wind of Death, sorry, what's that one called? Wind Blast, there we go, Wind Blast and Curse of the Midnight Wind. I think Celestial Wizards and Wizards of this Law of Magic are particularly underrated. I think they are quite powerful. In the back lines, we do have the Sunmaker, regiment-renowned Hellstorm Rocket Battery, known to destroy infantry lines, and of course the Beastmen tend to bring a massive sway of infantry. They are going to be protected by a lone unit of spearmen. We have a huge skirmish contingent as well, pistoliers dotted around, who are going to be protected in the front lines by some Empire Knights. Yeah, more pistoliers in the distance, and in the trees, some more Empire Knights. You don't have to go too heavy cavalry up against the Beastmen. They don't have the best counters to them. Knights of the Blazing Sun and so forth may be a little bit too much value, so I think Empire Knights is a good call. And we have Boris Todbringer, the cheaper and more cheerful version of Karl Franz. He has less responsibility in his life and is able just to swim out here to the icy plains to fight some Beastmen if he wishes. It's also very thematic. I believe Boris is an enemy of Kazarak. Anyway, he's coming in with the Midland Runefang, the White Cloak of Ulrich, as well as Crush the Weak, a very noble thing to say there. For the force of the Beastmen, the front line is a mixture of Ungor spear herds, as well as just the basic Ungor herds dotted all the way along. So nice, cheap, cheerful, just down for a good old scrap. We have some Ungor Raiders as well for long-range missile support, but the main punch of the build is in the back here in the Hero and Monster Court. We have a Mighty Cygor, going to be cobying those boulders forward to try and do some nice damage. We also have a Mighty Gorbel, one of my original favourite units way back in the day before I started playing and I was watching a Warhammer 1 kind of YouTube commentary and so forth. But he does get pushed around a little bit, so hopefully he'll be able to perform here. He's got a really cool model. We have a Brave Shaman of Beast coming with Manticore Summon, as well as a Morga the Shadowgave, who's currently turning his back on the enemy. Those manlins aren't worth his time, it would seem. Of course, coming in with all of his disgusting spawn summons. Over on the left-hand side, we have some Chaos Warhounds with Poison, escorting some Centaurs with great weapons. It looks like it's a similar situation on this right-hand flank. But without further ado, let's get this underway. I'm a big fan, by the way, of rolling Poison Warhounds to catch and slow down enemies, alongside the harder-hitting Centaurs with great weapons. In comes some big rock drops, but in retaliation, the Sunmaker sings, butchering Ungor Raiders. Oh my god, look at the health damage of one volley. Looks like it's pretty much forced off 2 units almost. This guy's just about going to hold the line. Ungor Raiders down to 53 models, and in one volley the Sunmaker's up to 80 kills. That is pretty scary stuff. In the front line, it is going to be butcher's work for sure, as the Ungors do have a relatively decent punch to them. These are not the spear variety in the front line, so they should be able to go okay toe-to-toe with the Flagellants as the front lines do engage. It looks like the men of the Empire taking the initiative to the normally ferocious Beastmen and getting charges off all across the field, which is very good news for them, as pistoliers do start to swing around the flanks. In the back line, there's a bit of a disaster for the Empire, though. Centaurs with great weapons and Warhounds coming in for the kill, but it looks like they actually dart away at last second. Perhaps a little bit scared of the Empire Knights coming in, but they definitely should have taken that fight and tried to finish these guys off as quickly as possible. In the front line, we do see a big wind blast coming down, doing some pretty good damage to the Ungor herds. Maybe a little bit stationary here, but it looks like the Gorbel is going to be pushing forward with the Brave Shaman and starting to butcher these Flagellants and hunt down that Celestial Wizard, who's not on a horse. Personally, I always like putting my wizards on some kind of fast-moving mount to escape such situations, because this Gorbel can just feast quite happily. In the back line, a little of the Centaurs with great weapons did commit to try and taking down the Sunmaker, but a little bit too little too late. If they'd hunted it down initially, yes, they probably would have sacrificed themselves to charge from the Empire Knights, but they probably would have been able to finish it off. Although saying that, they might just about be able to do it. Centaurs slowly closing to break here, but Sunmaker down just to 12 crew models left. Spearmen holding Chaos Warhounds at bay. As for the front line, we do see some Chaos Spawn summons going down now, pushing their way into the back lines. Ungol Raiders are now returning to the field as well, and getting some nice shots off on enemy Pistoliers, as well as in the front line. It looks like the Warrior Priest is one of the few troops holding the line left, and they do a fantastic job up against Spearheads, of course, dragging them down quite comfortably. Cygor only up to 2 kills so far, but is relatively healthy and has basically used up no ammunition. A lot of these Beastmen troops are starting to rally back to the cause. Well, of course, a lot of micro going on by both players in different directions as Boris swoops underneath a big old fat rock there. Fairman score has been used to summon in the back line. Looks like it's going after the Empire Knights. The Hellstorm Rocket Battery crew has managed to flee. At this point, the Beastmen player needs to disengage these Chaos Warhounds. They're fighting and losing fight there, and hunt down the Hellstorm Rocket Battery crew. If they can finish these guys off, that is going to allow the Beastmen infantry, which is currently swarming the battlefield, to really shine quite heavily. Looks like the Chaos Spawn desperately trying to pin in the mighty Boris Todbringer, who is going toe-to-toe with a big overhanding cleaving strike for the Doomball. He shall not go quietly into the night. No, he is pretty much as tall as Boris on his mighty mount, and doing some really big hacking and cleaving strikes. And let's have a little look how the fight's going. Not too bad for the Gorbel. You do expect him to lose this one, but he's dishing it out pretty much as good as he gets from the mighty Boris here. Although Boris, of course, can heal up, which is a big problem in the late game for the Beastmen here. Looks like the Warrior Priest with the Hammer of Sigma is trying his best, but is simply getting swarmed here by big nasty creatures, and will be getting it destroyed on the battlefield. Some Pistoliers have been forced off now by consistent Ungol Raider firepower, and the Cygor is up to 11 kills, though it looks like he's still trying to focus down Boris, who is wavering at this point. The Gorbel screams victorious, lifting the severed heads of many a Sigma's chosen to force back Boris there, who is fleeing for his life. But it looks like he should be able to rally in the backlines here. Now, did those Centaurs manage to take down the Hellstorm Rocket Battery crew? It looks like they did. If we look around the battlefield, I don't see them anywhere. So good play by the Beastmen player, wrapping up those troops there. Looks like, yeah, a few Centaurs died here, probably where they were chasing down at the enemy. Looks like the Rocks are still aiming after Boris, which I think is a bit of a mistake. I'd be aiming for the cavalry with the Cygor personally, get them off the field, and then when Boris commits, then you can start throwing rocks at him. Of course, the Brave Shaman is still alive and roaming through the back lines here. Celestial Wizard has been shut down. Ferroman's Court seeing to that. And a big boulder explodes the skulls of many a spearman as the Ungol Raiders go around their butchery work. Boris could possibly land here after the Brave Shaman. He looks like he's trying to assassinate Morga, but Morga is just disgustingly tanky. He's a real pain to hit. So I prefer this play of kind of swooping in, going after Gorbel, but it looks like he's going to be falling back whilst the Ferromanticore is active. This is brilliant play by the Empire player. There's no need to engage the Manticore and all these troops at the same time, but it looks like the Manticore's a little bit faster here, so he's going to have to turn and engage. Should do, relatively well here, especially because the Ferromanticore is going to disappear. It is going to be him taking some more damage. After that, he probably wants to charge the Gorbel rather than Morga, because you don't want to be taking the charge from the Gorbel in return here. Ungol Raiders are really having a bigger impact on the battlefield now for such cheap troops. They're helping force down Empire Knights here as the Ungol Spearhead do drive them away. Balance power very close to army losses here for the forces of the Empire, although that is largely, well not largely, but also partly due to the fact that the Ferromanticore is currently alive and doing some pretty good work up there. Morga has forced himself into the spearheads. It looks like the Brave Shaman is going to be whipping around the flank before dragging himself down the line of these spearmen. Really good attacking position in there from the Beastmen. But a lot of their troops are starting to run for the hills. The Gorbel is going to be taking a charge right into the butt as well from Boris Todbringer. He's now turning to engage, but he's taking a big old fat chunk. Boris is going to be retreating and taking arrows for the luxury there. And he does get back up into the skies. Gorbel really wants to just hang tight near Morga. Morga is a relatively decent duelist, but can also apply poison, which is huge, of course, in those big fights. Brave Shaman does overstay his welcome a little bit, and in comes Boris, annihilating the beast. But he only had the Manticore summoned, so to be honest, he used up all his magic, although he could be used at this point to chase off that Celestial Wizard, who's dancing with death right now. Cygor really trying to go after the character this game. And yeah, Celestial Wizard is taking a bit of a beating, but it looks like he's going to be able to pop a Curse of the Midnight Wind, which is absolutely huge. The Gorbel's melee attack and armor is reduced heavily. Boris is going to be getting his revenge for that early humiliation of the Gorbel driving him away. He has rallied the spearmen to his cause, and it looks like it is the Gorbel's turn to flee for his life. And the Gorbel maybe will return, but Pistoliers, good micro here by the Empire, are going to be using them to chase down the Gorbel and force it off the field. Empire certainly swinging this one back, and the balance of power is now almost dead even, although I'd say it's actually quite Empire favoured on the battlefield at this point. They still have their Wizard alive and active, and at this point there's nothing that can really bring down Boris successfully apart from maybe the Cygor. And of course, the bounce power is always really inflated by Morga the Shadowgate for some reason. I've never figured out quite why. The Cygor's still going for those long shots after Boris here, but we have Empire Nauts now reaving through the back line, going to be hunting down the Ungor Raiders, and these Ungor Raiders certainly not going to be having a fun time of it. Lances in the back as they scurry across the snowy plains, and yeah, they are breaking. Most of the Beastmen forces are shattering at this point. Now, the Cygor is a decent melee combatant all round, but especially late game when he has no friends nearby, his leadership will not hold, but he's not going down without a scrap here, launching a rock straight to the back of those Empire Knights, slaying many a model. More spearmen are now coming for this round, however, and the side got up to 74 kills, which is pretty impressive considering for the majority of the battle he was going after characters. Be interesting to see his damage impact at the end of the game on the end stats, because I think it would have served him better to be going after Empire Knights rather than the characters, but at the same point he didn't have anything, perfect to deal with them, so maybe it was a necessary evil. Ungor Spearheads driving back Pistoliers at the moment, but there's simply too many Empire forces left. If we have a little look at the number of troops at the moment, the Empire are outnumbering, and when you're a Beastman player and you're outnumbered, it's never a good day. One Empire guy just lost his head there to a Cygor animation. A few more will die, but they should be able to drag him down here in the end, I would assume. Although some Ungor herds are rallying to the cause here, going to be getting a lovely little rear charge on the Spearmen, who actually turn to charge back to meet the foe head on. And it's not going to be a good day for the Spearmen in reality in this fight, but the Ungors, relatively low on leadership, their leader is gone, may break, but they get an extra few dead Spearmen in the end. Spearmen once again continue to drag down the Cygor before Boris does engage. This is good patient play by the Empire. Boris can regenerate health, so he's simply going to chill up into the skies until he's back at his healing cap. Not only will that force the balance power more in his favour, which will lower the leadership of the Cygor, but it makes him of course more tanky. Even the Pistoliers getting in there to give the Cygor a little bit of a smack there at the end. So a Pyrrhic victory for the forces of the Empire. A truly epic game. Massive shout out to Consul of Rome and Not a Streamer. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. If you want to see your replays up on the channel, feel free to join my Discord. There is a link down below in the description. Thank you, by the way, to everyone who has been sending me in replays. We've had a huge flood of replays recently. I do try to get through as many as I can, but don't get disheartened if I don't cast one of your replays. It may be due to the fact that you send me a Bretonnian replay, and I've already got 2 Bretonnian replays ready to go, behind the scenes and so forth. So just continue to send stuff in, and I'm sure you'll get on there eventually. But yeah, awesome stuff all round. So, super fun game. A little bit of mistakes now and again, particularly from the Beastmen player, but I think he also did some really nice micro as well. So, a good shout out to him as well, and he put up a really good scrap here. Consul Rome is certainly a deadly opponent to face. Morga the Shadowgate didn't get the most damage value back, but still did a huge amount of damage dealt, and of course those Chaos Spawn summons are always pretty key. Now, the big kind of talking point of this whole battle, I think, is the Cygor. So, he got huge damage dealt across the board, but not much damage value, and that's because a lot of his shots simply missed. Going after flying targets like Boris or foot targets like the Celestial Wizard are pretty small and hard targets, or fast moving, for a mighty Cygor to throw a boulder at. He doesn't have the best tracking when it comes to his projectiles, so I think focusing on the Knight would have been a bit better, particularly when they were stuck in combat. But despite that, he put up a really good showing, particularly impressed by the Gorbel here, who went toe-to-toe with Boris on multiple occasions. I don't think, unfortunately, he lived to tell the tale, but doing a whopping nearly 2,000 damage value. Fantastic stuff by the Beastmen. Now, for the force of the Empire, the Hellstorm rocket battery got shut down relatively early on. Didn't really get through even half its ammunition, I don't think, but despite that, managed to get nearly 20,000 damage dealt, which is awesome stuff. 216 kills certainly helps clear out the chaff and allow the Flagellants to, do the dirty work. And you can see across the board, they did some pretty crazy damage value, much higher than the Ungors. Some of them managed to do pretty good stuff back in return. Apart from that, the War Priest kind of just got a little bit crumped, and the Celestial Wizard just about right in time to do a really key Curse of Midnight Wind to overthrow the reign of the evil Gorbel. And Boris does what he says on the ting. A cheaper and less effective Karl Franz, but he can heal up on his own and fall back, so it means you don't have to invest in a life caster, and instead can play around with some other different wizards. Awesome, guys. If you did enjoy, feel free to comment down below as well. Tell me what you enjoyed, what you'd like to see in the future, and all that good stuff. Unfortunately, I can't reply to every comment anymore, but I do read through them all still, and I really enjoy seeing them. So until next time, guys, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.